so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness which creates and animates all things. After years of exploring this awe-inspiring truth on this podcast, I'm super excited to announce that we are now going even deeper down the rabbit hole on the new late-night style consciousness-elevating talk show called Optimistic, which features none other than you, the listeners. Optimistic is taped out of the epic, spaceship-esque 8-bedroom property we call the Mystic Manor that myself and the rest of the Optimistic crew now navigate reality from in Venice Beach, California. And you are invited to come experience a Mystic Manor immersion week with us. During your week-long stay, you'll enjoy unique workshops, chef-prepared meals, one-on-one time coaching and consulting with me, and even co-creating magic with me as a guest on both Optimistic and an episode of the Positive Head podcast. When I started this, my aim with these immersive retreats was to facilitate the ultimate spiritual upgrade and tune-up, so to speak, for our guests while providing them with one of the most memorable experiences of their lives. And I'm happy to say that as of this recording, every guest at the end of their trip so far has told me that they have had a profound and transformational experience at the Mystic Manor and that they definitely want to come back. All that being said, we only have a limited number of spots available between now and next July. And as of this recording, about half of those spots are already filled. So if there's any part of you that is screaming, yes, I want to come, I feel like I need to be there, go now and book a slot with me to discuss how we can put our heads together and make it happen at calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. I know for some people, there is also that little voice in their head saying, why not? I can't get off work. I can't afford it, and on and on and on. But, really Henry Ford, I think, said it best. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I'm confident that where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm personally committed to doing everything in my power, including discounts and payment plans, to get you here if it is something that truly feels like a huge yes for you energetically and like you're meant to be here. Once again, the link to book time to discuss with me is calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. That's spelled calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. All one word, of course. And book in some time and look forward to seeing you soon here at the Mystic Manor. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Lori Spagna here with me on the show. Lori is an author, teacher, channel, and visionary who helps to awaken and realign people's connection to source consciousness. Super excited to have you here, Lori. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Brendan. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. We've already chatted it up a little bit before turning on the microphone. And I always know it's going to be a good Soul Share episode when the conversation just kicks right off. And I'm like, hold on. We got to stop. This is all too good. I got to turn on the microphone. I got to start recording. So that's always a good sign. And looking forward to this very much. I would like to go ahead and start with the same question that I always start with, a very predictable intro question, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, well, what's your passion? You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Expanding consciousness and just being in love, joy, falling in love with my life, sharing it with others.
I like that. Simple and powerful.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, that's my one of my questions is like, what am I going to do today to fall deeper in love with my own life and with all of my reality? That's one of my ongoing questions these days.
That's a really good question to pose. And it sets you up for creating a life worth living, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is so important right now for us to realize because it's so old paradigm to just be like, yeah, how are we going to survive? What's going on planet Earth? How are we going to make it through? And instead, we really have to be like, okay, there's just so much to fall in love with now. There's just so many amazing, incredible things happening on planet Earth as humans and animals are waking up and coming into alignment. And there's just so much. It's like better than being a kid in the candy store, you know? It's better than that.
Totally.
So
Totally. Moving from survival to thrival, right?
yeah, totally. And just every day, and just when I look at the thing that I one of the things that I love like maybe the most, or that maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but I just love is seeing how what people are doing as they shift. Like part of our earlier conversation was about your Venice retreat,
The Mystic
and
Manor, yeah.
the mystic manor, that whole manor, and that was so wonderful to watch that because I'm like, people are doing these amazing things that most likely their earlier versions of themselves would have never thought possible, never
For
even
sure.
conceived as possible. Yeah, and that is so brilliant.
It's so funny you said that. One of the
yeah,
Sorry, I got excited because I just had a
No.
conversation with someone yesterday evening who literally it was a 10-minute call of, her saying, I really want to come to the Mystic Manor and experience, it's, for those who don't know, it's a week-long retreat immersion that we do here and workshops and healing modalities and, vegan prepared meals and just it's super magical portal here in Venice, California, where I live, and different retreat guests come each week. And she was her comment to me was like, I just don't feel worthy, like I'm at a spiritual level where I have the right to be in this magical place. And I'm like, my response to her is like, there's never been someone more worthy than you. Like there couldn't be a more worthy character than if someone feels the call to come here, and by the way, if you guys want to check out, there's videos and everything on optimistic.tv, and you can, look into, just peek into what's happening here, the magic that's happening here, or, reach out to me about possibly coming and spending a week. But my point is like, you are the culmination of the universe, billions of years of evolution, that the choice points, the things that had to happen for any of us to be here are so beyond statistical probability. It's like you are absolutely as worthy as anyone ever has been, could be, will be. And I think that's the biggest message that I feel called more than any other to share right now is that very thing, because there's so many people, and this person ended up deciding to ultimately come. I'm really glad to say, and I know, because instead of that fear of FEAR, forgetting everything and running, or facing everything and rising, she will have just an absolutely upgrade, spiritual tune-up type experience. And so I think that's like such an important piece for everyone to be appreciating exactly where they're at in their journey. And there's no someone who's channeling or doing all the cool things that you do are no more worthy than the person who's just waking up to this stuff. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. I mean, just no matter what perspective you're looking through. In other words, whoever the person is, you're looking through the perspective of your own life and your own unique individualized awareness. That perspective is the most worthy perspective there is, because that's the true perspective for whoever you are as an individualized being. That perspective, you are all that is. From that perspective, you are all that is. And so you are as all that is from that perspective, you're the most worthy of the thing there is. Absolutely.
Right. Your God looking through that, your source consciousness looking through that vantage point. And out of all vantage points that it could choose to explore and view reality through, all the myriad of lenses it could choose to view reality from, and through, it's choosing that one and your avatar,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and
I mean, this is one of the things, because the more we can kind of like sort of slightly step back and become the awareness of the consciousness that is representing as the individual who's inhabiting a body, the more we can step back and just become aware. I am awareness of the consciousness which is expanding as a representative of the individual as being who inhabits the body. The more you become that awareness, you're like, I am all that is. I am aligned. I am all these. And therefore, I am the awareness that is aware of this being. And therefore, what can I do for this being as an awareness to become aware of something that is more desirable or more aligned with what they are desiring for their greater joy, happiness, fulfillment, so they can experience more of that, because I become the awareness of that. I am the awareness of that. Does that make sense?
absolutely.
See, that's how we're leveling up. That's how we're all leveling up, because the person who's speaking, the egoic identity that's saying, I don't feel worthy, is just functioning from an old paradigm, kind of individualized consciousness. But she is that awareness, she or he. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just more like, yeah, that
Absolutely.
is not really the higher truth of who I am.
Right.
And so that's part of us. That's part of all of us sort of claiming our divinity and recognizing in the field of all that is, we get to more and more align with that, all that is, more and more become, to the best of our individualization, all that is. It's just,
Right.
it's like we are the essence. We are the essence. Like whenever even someone's sort of, especially with retreats, because like I host a retreat every year called the Crystal Retreat, right? We go on a crystal experience in Arkansas. And I also do like a light worker boot camp once a year where we get to really, work through our stuff. And the whole idea there is to just start to really recognize how we're all leveling up to these higher levels of consciousness. So a really good example is if somebody's got, say, for example, financial issues and they're perceiving themselves to have a limitation or a lack of some kind of financial ability, it's just they're just functioning from a frequency of consciousness that they themselves have the ability to step back from and level up. Because the essence of all that is the essence of infinite supply, infinite abundance.
Yes. Yep.
So I love that.
Yeah, that's a big one that I've been also focused on a lot, tapping into as I expand myself, and part of that expansion requires more abundance to support the vision that I'm calling forth and that I'm co-creating, actually here at the Mystic Manor with all the people who even are coming. It's like, it's such a stretch, such a growth edge. Like, hold on, remember, Brandon, you're one with the abundance that not only created this planet, but all the planets, the whole cosmos, and beyond physicality. Like, that's a lot of abundance.
And then also, and also even as an individuation of source, one of the things I really like to teach or share anyway in my groups is what I call gifts to your future self. So we know there's infinite timelines and infinite realities, and your future self exists in those infinite timelines and infinite realities right now. So from your now self, you could sort of say, well, I'm lining up with the future self that I want to become by becoming that version now. I'm becoming that version now. But at the same time, you can also, at the same time, you can also say, myself right now wants to, let's say, go on this retreat and have this experience at this wonderful manor or at this crystal lake bed or whatever. So I'm going to give that gift to my future self by taking that risk to give that so that my future self gets that gift from me now.
Ooh, I like that.
You take that, you say, my future self will, because you could look at another future self where you didn't do that, take that risk, and you didn't give that gift, and that future self is sort of sitting on the couch going, I wish I had.
Yep.
Well, that's not what that's the future self that didn't get the gift of your past self.
Yeah. Wow. I love the way you put it. I always share this story of, I had a woman come to my house one time randomly, a friend of a friend, and she started telling me her story, her near death experience, where she, was drowning, and she was going under, and she realized this is it. And next thing she knows, she's on the other side, and first thing that happens on the other side is like, there's someone there with her and says, "Well, you're back. Welcome back. And, you took all the risks, right? You went for it all, right? You stretched yourself to the, in a very like kind of prodding way, sarcastic way almost. And of course she hadn't. And then, next thing she knows, she's blasted back into her body. Something's lifting her to the surface of the water, and she survives. And so I love how you put that. It's like you're risking it for your future self. With any time you're doing whatever that expansive, decision is. What I always say to people when I'm talking to them, because a lot of times they're on the fence about the cost of it or whatever in regards to coming here to the Mystic Manor, is like, look at the intention of what you're doing. What is it you're calling in for yourself? Is it highly aligned? Does it represent what the universe wants to express more of in the world through you? Mm-hmm. And what are you supporting beyond yourself? Because, there's this whole show that's happening that you're helping to support as a result. And, it's, I always think of there's a Terrence McKenna quote that I've read more times than I can count on the show. And it's my favorite, quote, because it basically talks about this very thing. It's like how nature loves. I'll read it because I probably read it at least once a week, and I'll probably continue because it's so good. I need to just memorize it. He said, nature loves courage. Nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under. It will lift you up. This is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. This is how magic is done, by hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it's a featherbed.
I love
Isn't that so good? Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's my favorite.
I have to say, as what my higher guidance has been saying, especially as it relates to 2020 and the new energies that are already here, it really is about, it's no longer about being mediocre for humanity.
Yeah.
If you're playing a mediocre game, life will just become so mediocre, and that's just not a timeline to align with the mediocrity.
It'll get more and more painful.
Yeah, it's just it'll get more and more mediocre until it's so painful. That's really such a clear message coming through right now for all of humanity. It's 2020 is a resurrection, and even in numerology, 22 is
clear
mastery.
vision.
Yeah, it's
right?
a rebirth.
2020 vision.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Awesome. Love that. But it is really about saying, what did I come here? I didn't come here to be mediocre. Like, that's what humanity is really meant to do in the next, in the next years, because that's the resurrection of humanity. That's the rebirth that we're all looking at. It's like coming out of that old paradigm, and then going through this earlier period of, I call it like first and second wave. You're just kind of like waking up, and you're coming into alignment. You're navigating a new fifth dimensional paradigm. Like, what does it mean to exist as this new being, as this new consciousness? What does it mean to exist in this reality? How do I overlap with the old paradigm without getting entangled with it? And how do I free and liberate myself from it and claim my sovereignty and all that stuff? Well, now it's like, no, you're here. You really have arrived. Like, this is it. Okay, now what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to create in the most vibrant, fabulous, and fantastic way? Like, that's what I think this is all about now. So yeah.
Sign me up.
It's very exciting.
Grow big or grow home or go home.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So we just jumped right into the deep end of the pool. I skipped right over the normal sort of backstory. I always like to just get some, and I know you have a fascinating backstory. So if you would, give us a little context for how you ended up, doing all the amazing work that you do.
Yeah. I mean, Gosh, well, the backstory is this, like just like a lot of people waking up. I spent my first 20 years out of college in corporate America. I called myself a good slave. And during those 20 years, I developed so many of those unhealthy behavioral adjustments for survival. Excessive smoking, excessive drinking, excessive spending, health issues, and just on and on. I was thyroid off, hair falling out of the body, like going to
Oh,
doctors, like
wow.
pumping me out with massive amounts of pharmaceutical drugs. And what happened was my brother died. It was my wake up call. He became my wake up call, and I started getting messages from him. And I didn't know that that was possible for me. I didn't know that I had that ability. But the key message was like, yeah, I'm a little trapped here because I kind of committed suicide. It was a drug overdose. And he's like, I
Wow.
can't get out. And I've come to realize that I need someone to help me find my way. It was something like along
Wow.
those lines. It wasn't that clear. It took a
Wow.
long time. Yeah. And so, but his message for me was, you also are on a similar trajectory, Lori. Even though you're not doing drugs, and drinking in the way I was. So he was like, you have to change your life. So that's what I did. I quit my 6-figure job. I became a dog trainer. I was recruited by a guy who had worked for the military for 20 years, training government service dogs. So he recruited me and trained me, and he would, for the first 3 months, he'd videotape me while I was working. Everything had to be on automated pilot. And so while I went into automated pilot, I started hearing the dogs. And they would
Wow.
say, you listen to me and I will teach you. So I just got
Wow.
really good at listening to animals. And the animals started telling me, we're here to help humans. And here's what we do to help humans. And here's how you can help us to help humans. So then I started becoming a healer, because it was like I got into all those healing arts, Reiki, the Akashic records, theta healing, like on and on. I was just obsessed with it. But in the same sort of period of time, I moved to Maui, and I got into the healing stuff in Maui. And I was studying with this incredible master who had spent his life like secluded in the Himalayan mountains. And
Wow.
he was teaching me those ancient Tibetan practices and ancient Buddhist and like those kinds of practices that you don't know about, esoteric practices that are ancient mystery school practices. And the big one was how to leave my body without dying. And it wasn't astral
Astral
travel.
projection? No?
It wasn't any of that. It was the essence of your consciousness is not physical at all. So he was teaching me. So he one time, and this guy, it's documented that he kind of woke up in the morgue banging on the, freezer, literally.
Oh,
That's
wow.
documented. So one of the things he taught me was, one of the first things I had was, he blew the essence of my consciousness out of my body so that the whole physical reality essentially dismantled. But I was still
Wow.
conscious. And then within that some period of time of that, he literally just snapped his fingers, counted to 3, snapped his fingers, and popped me back into my physical body. That's what a master he was. So once I had that experience,
Whoa.
everything opened up for me. Everything. That was what I call my near-death experience. And
Shoo.
so then, while living in Maui, I'll kind of wrap with this, but because it's just like, it's a really great story, right? While living in Maui, then after that, I was meditating every night. Like this was my practice, to try to meditate myself out of the physical world and still be fully conscious, to try to master what he sort of showed me was possible.
Yeah.
And one particular night, I was meditating. Well, I did this a lot on the back porch of my house, like at midnight. Actually, it was like 2 a.m. by this time this happened, because everything was closed in Maui at that time. Like there was no airport, there was no airplanes. And
Right.
I made contact with this extraterrestrial ship, this starship. And I mean, I knew
Whoa.
it was not a satellite. I had worked for the satellite television industry, for the cable television industry. And it was just a circling light, in the sky. And I, without really knowing what I was doing, because really I was not trained. I didn't know anything about star family races at that time. I didn't know anything about extraterrestrials. It was all pre-2012. I just thought, oh, they're here to help us. Like I had no
Wow.
idea. And I just mentally said, without even knowing that they would be so so able to pick up my telepathy. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. Like, that's my
Yeah.
ignorance at that time, right? Like, how foolish of me. But in that moment, I was teletransported on ship. And
Wow.
it was like a plasma state. I was not in my physical form, but I was very aware of myself as like a plasma type of being. But even then, I wouldn't have used those words because plasma was a word I learned later to understand what happened.
Yeah.
What happened there? Okay, that word was given to me, and in the unpacking of it. But anyway, to summarize this, I understood that that was my star family race. That was my
Wow.
star family community. And there were many star families on board that ship. And that was a divine appointment. And that I braided in, speaking of your future self, right? My future self as a star being, braided in with my human self who had lived this whole lifetime up till now, and we braided. So I call myself a braided star seed. So I have all memory of and all storyline of my human story. That is who I am. The person who was born in this body is Lori Spagna, but I also know who I am as a star being. And I have those gifts of myself as a star being and connection with galactic races and
Wow.
ultra dimensional, extra dimensional beings and lives and experience and gifts. And so that to me was why I went to Maui, and that was my wake up call. And that's really
Wow.
where it all started.
So to recap, you're meditating on your front porch. You see a light in the sky. You start using the same techniques that you'd been practicing on animals to attempt to communicate. Next thing you know, your consciousness is aboard a ship, and you're having a merging of sorts with another version of yourself that is of extraterrestrial origin, that is affiliated with that ship. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, with those
Wow.
with those beings on that ship. But the way you said it makes me sound like I did it with some kind of precision or knowing or expertise. And it was
Right,
nothing.
right.
It was like I had no idea what I was doing, Brandon. I was just sitting there
The
like,
babe in
"Oh
the
my
woods was
God."
walking through the woods and fell in the well. Got it.
I was just meditating, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a ship. That is a ship. And I just started
Wow.
having telepathy with it because I was already telepathic. That I had
Yeah.
learned from the animals, but I wasn't doing it like I didn't even know if they were
Intentionally.
getting it. Like, I was just kind of clueless, really. But
Wow.
that's how it starts, really, in a way. I mean, everybody has their own unique story, but it took me years to unpack it. I did hypnosis and I did a lot of like the first few days after that. I remember I was just dazed and confused. Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
And you
Like
were
that kind of
remembering,
thing.
and you were and so you have full memories of this other version of yourself. Did you say, like,
I would say I
in
have
this braiding
full
process?
memories. Yeah, I have full memories, but I had to unpack it. It took a while to unpack it. Like I said, I did some hypnosis. I definitely had some channeled sessions, and I would put pieces together, and then the channeling would bring me more pieces with sessions and stuff. But I definitely woke up the next day knowing what happened. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know what
Yeah.
happened. I was like, what was that? I just
Yeah.
didn't, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
It's wild.
Right. That is wild. So
Yeah.
so how prevalent is this other part of yourself? Would you say, as I'm communicating with your consciousness now, how much of it is this starseed version of yourself? And are you like fully like remembering like, oh, what you'll do in this other timeline, what your sort of occupation, if you will, is, or personal relationships?
Well, I would just say it's very integrated. So it's sort of like, look, if I say to you, Brandon, can you remember back to 2014 what you were doing? You probably have to take a little bit of time to remember, to think about it, to
For
recall
sure.
it,
For sure.
yeah, especially now because obviously our memories are kind of collapsing. But the point is, it's
I
like that.
second that.
Right. We have our reference points are gone. We don't have the same reference points anymore in the new paradigm. But it's like that. It's like I can access that information and I can have knowing. But really the main thing, I really get it. The main thing was designed for me to assist humanity in the awakening process. And one of the biggest things that came out of that ultimately was bringing gifts from higher dimensional consciousness, especially things related to what's dormant in the DNA for humans and animals, helping us to unlock that and awaken that for ourselves. So we can all unlock and awaken our DNA. There's all kinds of dormant potential within us as physical bodies. And that expands our gifts, talents, abilities, and consciousness as we do that. It's just one aspect of ascension and of our own transformational experience. And yet it's a very real, tangible kind of thing that every human can relate to. You have codes in your DNA. You have dormant potential lying within you, no matter what is done, no matter what DNA is taken from you, that stuff is in you. It has not been kept from anyone. It's just like our pineal gland and our pituitary gland. Everybody has these master glands, and everybody can awaken them and activate them. And once that happens, all kinds of dormant knowing that you never knew you had is in there. All kinds of access to higher realms and higher intelligence. We all have it. And I just think that that was the overall purpose of this braided experience, was for me to come into the physical world and be a facilitator for the expansion of consciousness and the ascension process for humanity.
You know, it's funny. I was looking on your website before we before we got on this call, and I saw something where you're talking about, you know, the how you help people to learn what lies beyond the first 12 strands of DNA. And that there's 444 potential strands of unawakened DNA on your site. And it's funny, of course, because there's literally, so speaking of the Mystic Manor, there's a past guest here who walked in a month plus ago with 444 tattooed on her arm. And I have this crazy 444 synchronicity story that I've shared before in the past on the show and past episodes. And so as soon as she walked in, I'm like, oh, here we go. And then all kinds of things unfolded. Now she is actually here on an ongoing basis to help. We're starting to vlog everything. We're going to be starting to vlog everything that happens here at the Mystic Manor, and she's going to become a key part of that. And so as soon as I saw, oh, there's 440, I mean, the amount of 444 stuff that's happened in the last month for me, and in her too. I mean, even her flying to LA is like, oh, sunset today is at 444. It's like it'd be 15 minutes of 444 stories that have all unfolded, you know, and it's just funny. You know, this is the first thing you bring up, and we're right back staring at 444 again, which is just incredible.
Yeah. I mean, we say 444, and I really get that, but we don't even know, because, see, here's the thing that I get about the DNA that's really important is right now, humans have been operating with two completely corrupted strands, not completely, but basically corrupted strands of DNA. And the reason I call them corrupted is that they basically carry the wounds of our ancestors. Plus, they carry all kinds of imprints, implants, and interference. You know, all kinds of interference and all kinds of like implants and things. And that stuff has to be cleaned out, right? So if someone's walking around thinking that they have diabetes and it's not healable, or they're thinking that they have breast cancer from their lineage and they better cut their breasts off, or whatever, you know, you could go on and on. Or they have money problems, or you have a woman who feels like she's an old hag and she's never going to meet anyone. All that stuff is coded in the first two strands of DNA, even the money stuff, all of it. It's just storylines,
right,
of what we did not resolve. And yes, some of it is interference, you know. And so that stuff has to be cleaned out, right? That's just what we came here to resolve. And that's fine. Okay, it's so easy to clean that out once you start working with these higher realms. It might seem a bit obscene or strange to say that to like a very 3D consciousness person, or a scientist, or a doctor, a Western medicine person. But from the higher realms and spiritual consciousness, effortless to clean that stuff out, really easy. Now, once you start getting into the other 12 strands of the physical body, that's when you start recognizing your divine mission, your soul's agenda, your true original divine blueprint, which is a blueprint for your ideal and optimal state of health and well-being and living in an extraordinary way in all areas of your life. Like you start opening and accessing that. You start getting on mission. You start living better. You start opening up your psychic gifts. You start accessing and playing with the higher realms slightly. You get to your fifth strand, pretty much. You're in unity consciousness. You're really at oneness. You're like living in 5D. You're like, my life is fifth dimensional reality, right?
Yeah.
Then beyond that, you start accessing the higher realms. Sixth strand is like sixth dimensional consciousness. This is where the Akashic records lie. This is really where the universal laws are. That's how you start knowing what's really true and real. What's really true and real in a world where everything's a dream.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how that stuff helps you. You know, universal laws, which do agree with the laws of quantum physics and physics. You know, physics validates them in their scientific terminology. You get into that, you're like, okay, now I can even expand beyond that. Now that I'm aligned with these laws, I'm living my life in a physical world according to universal laws. I'm living in harmony, natural harmony with the true reality of all that is in physicality. You start activating beyond that. You get to seventh, eighth. You're getting into other universals, other universal realities, ultra universal, ultra dimensional. This is just where the fun really starts to expand. Like this is when we start really playing in a real way, like way beyond what we've dreamed up before. So to me, that's the DNA, and just accessing it and awakening it is a glorious experience, because it's where we start. It's what we've been talking about. It's where we start awakening to all the potentials that exist within us, on all the solutions.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's exciting to realize that that potentiality is there for everyone too. It's not like, oh, I'm super special and I can have this magical life and you're supposed to be a couch potato. Like, and you're, you know, the past, whatever story whatever narrative you've been running, whatever loop you've been running, you know, as you just put it, it's like, it's relatively easy to start clearing from one perspective. And I think that's a really exciting prospect that anyone out there listening right now, you know, a year from now, or you know, and really time being illusory, like you can in very short order have a very different looking life if you start getting into vibrational alignment with these, you know, more expanded versions of yourself. So I guess my question to you is, what are some of the things that you would recommend for people to start doing who want to step into this next greatest and grandest version of themselves?
Well, one of the first things that people can start to, depends on where their consciousness is at any point. But for one, start working, you know, the basic intention. Like a great intention is, I intend to dramatically improve the quality of my life in every area of life in the most benevolent ways I possibly can. That's an awesome intention.
I like
intend to really wake up and align with my highest and most benevolent best trajectory. Align with my
love that.
I mean, that just those two intentions right there. If you intend them and reaffirm them on an ongoing and regular basis, we know the power of intention. It really, really works. Now, the other thing is, of course, getting around other beings, community. That's why the retreats are so important. Community and being around other people, it's so important, because the biggest challenge that people have, especially second wavers have this a lot, and now the second wave is kind of culminating this year, but is they're exposed to this everyday mediocrity in the old paradigm, because we're overlapping, you know, our timelines and realities are overlapping. So that exposure is sort of like, you know, you get kind of pulled down by it, you know, you have to disentangle yourself from it on a regular and ongoing basis. So the community around other light workers and people who resonate with this stuff and who are open to it, even if they don't know about all of it, is just so important. So that's why retreats like so important. That's another.
Or just a transformational festival is another big one for me that played that role. I go to a lot of transformational festivals. Yep.
Yeah, conferences, expos, workshops. If you
Yep.
can't
Yep.
travel to it, do it online. I mean, that's why even
Yep.
your show so good. Just
Yep.
this you have to really be mindful. I
Activating
always
that
say,
vibration.
yeah, your four most important assets in 5D are your brain, which we could include your mind, what you pay attention to, your heart, your ability to magnetize and actually radiate love and peace, and magnetize and attract love and peace and the frequencies that are vibrationally compatible with 5D and beyond. So your heart, your gut, which has, by the way, your heart and your brain gut, we both know, we know they have brain matter. So as you develop
Yep.
these, you're developing more brain capacity and more brain.
Yep.
So your gut, following your gut instinct, and of course, feeding and nurturing your whole system with healthy, organic foods, green foods, Mother Earth foods, the sun, breathing in the sun of God, the light and breath, air. That's gut stuff. I mean, it's whole body stuff, but, and then those are your three most important assets. And then your other biggest asset is your DNA. Most important, your four most important assets. You have to unlock your DNA. You have to awaken it. And if you don't know how to do it for yourself, well, we can all learn to do it for ourselves. But if you're early awakener, or if this seems new, or you're unsure, that's why you put yourself around other people who are doing it and showing you, and have done it already, and you learn it. And it's okay if you like on my groups, a lot of people don't know how to do it for themselves, even though I'm teaching them how to do it for themselves, and we're doing it for ourselves. But I'm also facilitating and leading it and orchestrating, and the higher consciousness and the higher realms are involved in it too, because all of our higher selves participate when I do it in groups, and of course the divine. And this is how we discover all these codes in the DNA, because higher consciousness is revealing to us, oh, this is locked in your DNA, unlock this for them, tell them this, we want to unlock this. I'm just a translator most of the time,
Right.
but
Right.
all of this stuff is in there. I'm a translator, I'm a facilitator, I'm a witness, all of that, but nonetheless, that is crucial. So those when you, to go back to your question, that's, to me, those are some of the key most important things we need to be doing. Minding our mind, minding our heart, minding our gut, minding our DNA, and being around like-minded others. And then of course, the detoxification. Detoxification from 3D, which means refuse to give your consciousness, your consent, or your authority to anything 3D to the best of your ability. And when I say refuse, I don't mean resist it. I don't mean judge it. I don't mean make it wrong. I
Give
don't
it
mean
none
make
of
it
your
bad.
energy.
I would even go a little further to say, be done with it. In other words, bless it for what it was. We are done. We're done with 3D. We wish it. We have no further business with it.
We bid
And
you
yeah, okay,
adieu.
we do. Right. We do still, we're weaning out of it. So we know we still have a financial system that's still, interplaying. We still have banking institutions. We still have a lot of that still going on, but we're gently, as expediently as we are able to, we are weaning off that in a most benevolent way. So that's what I mean by just be done with it. Detox.
And you mentioned, the a big anchor to 3D is, the monetary system that we currently, find ourselves operating within. And I think for a lot of people, that is the one that, just keeps them anchored into 3D more than anything else. And I know you also wrote a book, The Secret Energy of Money and the Spiritual Laws of Wealth. So I think that would be a really great, topic to sort of dive down here a little bit to help people to how do you gently untangle from this control structure that has got such a stranglehold on the majority of the planet.
Yeah, well, from a conscious perspective, in my opinion, money issues are always directly connected to three things. Number one, your own personal sense of self-worth and value, which means you have
Yep.
inner work to do. Got to work on
Yep.
that. Self-worth, self-value, self-love, self-nurture, self-care, all that stuff. And that is work that is inner work That is mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual work that must be done, right? There's lots of ways to do that. Like I have a whole course on this. It's in the Sacred Membership, by the way. But we could talk about that a little more later. But
Cool.
that's number one. Number two, what's at the core of money issue besides that is an issue of generosity and reciprocity. So that has to be in a fair energy exchange. It's learning about fair energy exchange. We are meant to be both generous givers and generous receivers.
And a lot of people struggle with the receiving side of it. Like, you know what I mean? They
Grateful
like,
receiver.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to receive. And that it does always tie back to a lot of times I think people think, oh, I'm not worthy. I can't take this thing that's coming to me, presenting itself to me as sort of a symbolism of abundance. And yet I feel unworthy and no, I'm refusing the gift or whatever it is. There's a lot of that, it's like this over this, I want to be so spiritually humble and therefore, only be barefooted,
but that stuff is all corrupted. That's all 3D mindset. So that's why I say when you're doing the inner work on like your self-worth and your self-value and you're putting yourself in community or listening to podcasts or other things, that's going to shift for you, which is why the third part of this is so important. The third part of what's linked to money issues, it's always education. But when I say education, I do not mean in an old 3D way. I mean, the moment you start reading or listening to books or MP3s on abundance and prosperity and shifting your mindset, this is education. It's a mindset. Yeah. Mindset. So you just listen to Florence Shovel, what's her last name? Shen. She's so famous, and she just does these incredible classes on. They're not classes. They're like, she was a religious person, a very spiritual woman. She's not physically alive in the early 1900s, and she just did all these affirmations about abundance, wealth, prosperity. Louise Hay, all of those Hay House abundance prosperity books. I mean, that stuff is so, to me, it's so early awakener. So when you start listening to that and shifting your mindset, that's an educational issue on abundance and prosperity. You reframe your consciousness and your awareness to be an abundant. So to me, those are the three key areas. Number one, self-worth and self-value. Definitely. You've got to work on all that at a core level. And that stuff does get coded into the DNA. So it's clearing out beliefs and belief systems and old ways of operating. And it could be linked to your ancestors because, Great Depression. And it could be linked to timelines where you experienced poverty or someone along your lineage went through that. So that's healing. That's the inner work. The second part, got to get aligned with generosity and reciprocity in a flow-based way. It doesn't have to be measure for measure, but the universe has an incredible accounting system. And it does not measure energy, and yet all units of measurement are measured. It's like both. It's that kind of
divine dichotomy.
Right, dichotomy, right? So you have to be generously giving and generously or gratefully receiving. And you have to be in the flow of both. And you got to keep yourself in check because and this is all areas of life because it translates in money. But it's like if you're inappropriately sharing someone's workshop, that's a theft. And theft is an energetic frequency. Now you're lining yourself up with that. If you're overutilizing someone's time or taking their time or their energy, you're energetically vampiring. That's going to be a theft. That's going to register and put you in frequencies of poverty. If you're over giving, like this is what's happened to me over the years, because I used to give all my stuff because I was so overly generous. I gave away all my classes. I just wanted people to have it. And what would happen was I would see how when I was doing that, the universe started giving me messages that someone was inappropriately sharing or someone was asking me for something for free. Or
they weren't valuing it.
They weren't valuing it. And I, over the years, I made an agreement with my own higher consciousness. Like, if that happens, that means I'm underpricing, undercharging, or overgiving. Now I'm in check with that, because I started to realize that that's just another reflection, right?
Yep.
So everything's a reflection, right? Everything's a biofeedback loop. So
Right.
you have to really be really monitoring in a way without being exact about it, without being hung up on the the ridiculousness of exactness, just being in flow with that generosity and reciprocity, grateful receiving, enormously generous giving, be grateful to give and joyfully giving. And then the third thing, as I said, education, self-education, listening, reframing, getting in mindset of abundance and prosperity, learning, because the truth is, it is so easy here to make money. It's so easy.
Especially
It's
now
much. Yeah, I just
with
want
the
to say,
internet.
being a being abundant, being abundant is so much easier than
Yeah.
being impoverished. Being impoverished is hard. It feels bad. It's painful.
It's
It's
heavy.
excruciating. You have relationship problems. People don't want to be around you. You're depressed. It's so hard. Just, you know what's one of the easiest things to shift that? Start getting happy. Just say, F the money. I'm going to go out. I'm gonna
Radical
be
gratitude for
happy.
what you have right now.
Yeah. Huge way to
There's
shift
someone
it.
out there who would kill for your scenario. There's a billionaire in a wheelchair who would give it all away for what you have, right? And so once you start shifting that perspective, and that self-worth piece, I think, is the biggest limiter. And that's why I keep going back to lately as a theme, like, just really take in for a moment, soak in for a moment what the universe has had to do for you to be here. 13 billion years of evolution, and you were the pinnacle of it. And, the choice points that had to happen, the great grandfather who had to survive one more hour to, pass along the food that he just carried back to, his child, and on and on and on and on and on. And the grandma that went left instead of right. And so many things had to happen for you to be here. And it's like, for you to then not honor and appreciate what the universe has had to do to present you here as the pinnacle of its evolution is doing a disservice to yourself, is doing a disservice to mankind, because you carry gifts that only you carry. And if they're not fully realized, then the whole is less because of it.
Yes. Yeah. That's beautiful, Brandon. That's really right on.
I agree. It is beautiful. What we are is beautiful. And it's really about, this remembering that, remembering, coming back together, and the so much joy in the giving, as you said as well. It's like, there's nothing more fun than, giving someone an experience or shifting their world in a way that is like uplifting. It's like, it's how we all rise. You're going to find an opportunity to give away what you want for yourself to someone else, and always do it. And the reason is because, this is how we create abundance and flow into our own life, because what you give, you receive, because there are no others. Right. And so this is the way the game is rigged. And once you understand that, you can start playing in a way that's much more effective than poverty.
The other thing I just say
fun.
on this topic area, the other thing I'll say on this topic area too, is it's just so important to understand. It's all frequency based. That's why I say it's so much easier and lighter and feels so good to be abundant, because it's frequency based. So when you understand the concepts of raising your vibration, cleaning out your field, doing the inner work, doing the energy work and energy clearings, and DNA recoding and all of that stuff, you're raising your frequency. And as you get lighter and brighter, and all those higher frequency range vibratory states are you are the embodiment of that. I'm saying you, but I mean all of us. What really happens is you just up level into parts, your timeline, time and space reality, where you're having more abundance anyway. Just experience. So it's there for you. It's already there for all of us. It's already available.
There's a
to us.
party happening waiting for you to join.
Yeah. I will say, so all humans, we learn in one or one, two, three, or four ways. This is how we learn in our reality, or at least up until 5D, because 5D, at a certain point, you don't have to learn anymore. You don't have to learn, just accessing information,
Right.
energy, and states of being and experiencing. But up until really you're really well anchored into 5D, it's a learning game, right? And even beyond, there's a degree of learning. But the key ways we learn are physical health issues, right? So if we have a physical health issue, that usually means we missed all the other lessons. Like that's the densest way of kind of learning something. Your body is finally
Right.
like, you're not getting it. I'm just going to have to force you through communication. I'm communicating to you. Here's what's out of alignment. And that's what health issue is. You haven't gotten the message. But so the body becomes a tool of transformation in that way. The other key way that we learn is, again, money issues. So if you have real money issues, your soul, so to speak, and your higher self are kind of in the universe are working to try to teach you something that you haven't learned. That's along this topic area that we've discussed. So if you're willing to receive that learning, it's trying to teach you something. And so that becomes a major part of becoming more abundant. Like what am I meant to learn through this to my benefit? What gifts am I meant to receive through this experience so that I can be done and complete with it? And so that I can
Right.
level up to the next higher experience, more expanded, desirable experience. So the money issue is the second thing we learn. And then, of course, the third major way is relationships and relationships with ourselves and others. The fourth major way, and this is, of course, is the spiritual path, right? We learn through God, through our connection with Source, through angels, through, and I mean, everything spiritual. But like for me, spiritual learning is like when I'm alone and I'm dialoguing with the non-physical realm, or I'm trying to expand or understand something that is just nowhere in a book, that is just not found in the physical world. I might be struggling through that, right? I might be like, well, why does this? I don't get this. Why does this? I'm talking to my higher teams, and sometimes they're like, okay, cool out. You don't have to be a divine brat. You call me a divine brat sometimes. Like, you don't have to struggle to get the answer. We've heard you. Just get out of the way. The question's on its way. The answer's on its way. Like, but that's how I learn. So to me, that's like spiritual learning. But even in 3D, you could look at spiritual learning like someone who has a belief system that God's a punishing God. How could God
Right.
punish us like this? How could God do terrible things like this? Okay, that's an example of the fourth way we learn. So those are kind of like the four major ways. So if you're blocked or having challenges in some area, and again, we were specifically talking about money in this case, or abundance, or materialistic possession, it very likely means you've got some major learning to do in that area.
Yeah.
It goes back to my point on education. So anyway, hopefully that's
Yeah,
helpful.
and great, super helpful. I mean, and great perspective shift, all of you out there listening. So if you have issues in any of those areas, instead of these are negative issues that you resent and wish were not there, now let's spin this in a way of like, oh, wow, the universe loves me so much that it's actually given me these challenges so that I can actually receive the message I need to receive in order to upgrade and evolve into the next greatest and grandest version of myself. So you're loved enough that the trouble has been went to give you that illness or that crappy relationship or money issues or whatever it is, so that you can get the message of hey, there's a place where I'm out of alignment with what it is that I'm becoming, and pay attention. And so that's a beautiful thing. Now it's not something to resist and hate and shake your fist at. It's oh, thank you for this lesson. Thank you for this message. I'm here. I'm receiving. I'm turning my gaze to help to investigate and get to the root of what it is, so that I can receive the message, integrate the learning, and transmute the quote unquote problem or issue that it presented in the form of.
Yes. And I mean, in the DNA, specifically with health related issues, I'll say one of the ways that when I'm working with people, or animals too, because the animals are a major part of this. If if there's health related issues, I'm always being guided to help that person to unlock gifts of consciousness that health issue is holding in place for them that they have not received. It's always that. It's gifts of consciousness that they have not yet integrated into their consciousness, into their conscious awareness, into their conscious knowing. So to me, that's what all illness really is. It's just like presents under the tree that you never unwrapped, and you didn't even remember because somehow they ended up in the basement and they got all tattered up and battered up, and you didn't even think they were gifts. You just thought they were decoration.
Right.
And you're gonna, you're like, hey, let's get rid of this junk, and you're like, no, you can't get rid of it. There's gifts in there. Then you can throw out like the wrapping because there's gifts.
Right. Exactly. The lump of coal is a diamond in disguise waiting to be transmuted, right?
Yes.
Whew. So let's talk a little bit more about unlocking. I know you also wrote a book about unlocking your psychic potential. And I know that's something that, this intuitive muscle that we all have, some have developed it in incredible, amazing ways. Others are skeptical if they even have it. I'm curious what your take would be on, unlocking how one can start to explore their own intuitive abilities and start using this, potent, sixth sense that a lot of times is not being, utilized. Speaking of having gifts under the tree that you haven't unwrapped, right?
Right. Well, let me say, when I wrote that book, even my gifts had just barely begun to really come to fruit bearing. It's like I was already doing it. I was already using and practicing what was in that book, and it was working for me. But it's just there's just so much potential. Look, let's just do the science on this. Everyone has a pineal gland and a pituitary gland in the center of the brain, which is also known as the third eye. And these master glands are the glands which we translate and receive and perceive information through. Everyone also has the ability to access what's known as a theta brainwave. And a theta brainwave is a frequency of a brainwave, a wave pattern frequency, where it's like an information superhighway. So,
right.
Of course, in 3D, people have not learned how to do that. At best, people in 3D are accessing only 3 brain waves: delta, which is sleep time; beta, which is active and alert; and at best, alpha, which is a soft meditation or a sort of, sort of sleepy meditative type of state, passively meditative, like chilling out. But when you actively engage in accessing a theta brainwave, and when you're able to hold it without falling asleep, because that's the early stages, most people drop right down into delta, they fall asleep. That brainwave is information superhighway. Everyone has that ability. They have to learn that. So these are where our psychic gifts come. In addition to that, it's important to say that everybody has skin. Skin is a major communication vehicle. We absolutely know that. We know that from the Institute of Heart Math, that it's been studied and documented enough to know that you can hear, smell, and sense through your skin. That's now been scientifically validated. We also all know that we have a heart. Everyone has a heart, and the heart has a brain, and the heart is a magnetic tool that exchanges information. And we also know that we all have a gut, and we all know that the gut has a brain that can be developed, sort of like a muscle can be built, and we all have that ability. And the gut with that brain, can exchange gut information. Oh, that was my gut. Okay, all of that, that's all psychic. That's all extrasensory. There's not a human being, by the way, there's not an animal on the planet either that doesn't have that. So the issue is more, are you developing it? So when someone says psychic information is woo-woo, it's that I don't mean to say this in an insulting way, it's just kind of my fiery personality. They're ignorant. That's ignorant.
Right. Yep.
That's all. So one of the key things to understand here, I'll go back to that word detox and being with nature and Mother Earth and breathing in the light of the sun and eating only healthy foods. Because if you're eating white sugar, it's genetically modified. White sugar shuts down the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, calcifies it, blocks your inner knowing. All
Yeah.
forms of artificial sweeteners, all that pink and green packets and yellow packets. Like, I'm not talking stevia, I'm talking artificial aspartame and
Yep.
artificial sweeteners, toxic chemicals. And we've been lied to about that, right? So that has to be completely
Fluoride, right?
eradicated. Fluoride in the water, completely. We know that from the Nazi, that was used and discovered during Nazi death camps. They used it to pacify and stupefy the prisoners, and then they introduced it to the masses in the water system, and they lied to people and told them it would help the teeth. It's a lie. Makes you dumb and stupid. Shuts down the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. So yeah, the water you drink is, we can get into, that's a whole hour show of its own, blessing water and sacred geometry in the water and making sure that you're drinking high frequency water, high frequency, high vibe food, which is green food. I know you're a fan of the green juice, I have
Purium.
that too. You know what I'm talking about? Purium, yeah. So
Yes, I love.
if I'm not able to juice, I do Purium. I have it in my.
Me too. It's the quickest way to get high nutrition, superfood into my system. I found, they dehydrate all the food at room temperature at the farms, all organic, no biohazards within 100 miles. If you guys are interested in that, actually, if you go to positivehead.com/transformation, you can see all the whys, regarding Purium and why I use it. And for a long time, it was, we talked about it daily on the show, and I haven't in a minute, but I use it every day. I'm going to go have a Purium shake after this. So it's
awesome.
Definitely amazing.
I have a ritual where I make a green juice every week. Like, I make a week's supply, but that's a 2-hour job for me on either a Sunday night or a Monday night. And if I if I just don't get to it, I'm always the Purium. When I travel, I'm bringing the Purium. It's great. Like, just green. The body needs green, lots of nature in the body, and absolutely all genetically modified food must be removed from the body. And that's really hard do, because there's been so much labeling issues, but overall, the more intuitive you get, the more psychic you develop yourself, the more you can just look at something and be like, low vibe, high vibe. Yes, no.
Right.
That's, that my body is saying no. You start using muscle testing. I teach muscle testing on all my retreats and all my workshops, because it's one of your most powerful and potent tools for inner guidance. You can muscle test anything. If you understand that the body will lean in and or up to anything it wants, and it will lean back and or away from anything it doesn't want, anything that's unhealthy or not aligned with it. Muscle testing is a fabulous tool. Everybody should have it. Everybody should know it.
Yeah, I was originally introduced to that in the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah.
Yes, I am. I think that might be where I was first introduced to it too. I've been using it now for years. I use it whenever I have any uncertainty. I use it. I mean, pendulums are great too if you learn how to use those. But the point of pendulums? They're oftentimes responding to your own consciousness, so you can sometimes get a slightly off answer. But overall, it's still a great tool. I mean, because this is what we're shifting out of, an old paradigm where we gave our power to others, external authorities. Doctor tells you got something, you just trusted him. Doctor tells you take this pill, you just trusted him. Government says, hey, this fluoride's good for you, you just trust it. And just giving your power away to external forces is done over. We're reclaiming our power. So that's why accessing and awakening your psychic gifts and knowing that it's within you, and it is fact and it is real, and eliminating all the stuff to awaken it within us, this is important. That's why muscle testing is important. That's why pendulums are really helpful and wonderful tools, because they're all ways that we reclaim our power and our sovereignty and our authority over our own lives, understanding that we have our own best interest at heart. And we are meant to be able to, it's not that we're never meant to rely on one another, but it's that we have to be aligned with our own guiding force. And as we do more and more of that, by the way, we're calling in our higher self, our divine source self of infinite love into our bodies, into our embodiment. And of course, at the same time, we're recognizing we are not the limitation of our embodiment. This is all of what happens here when we're playing with this, when we're shifting into this. So anyway, that was all born out of the psychic question.
Yeah, well, good answer.
Long, elaborate answer. It's impossible to get a short answer out of it.
Not me. I'm just so concise, and I never over communicate. Every listener is laughing right now.
So this is what's important. It's important because you know why we over communicate. I made peace with my over communication a long time ago. You know why?
Me too.
People are trying to learn very complicated topics, very esoteric topics that have been completely foreign to them. And really good teachers are required. And in order to do that, you can't really give short answers anymore. To really help people level up and really ingest this information and really integrate it, the information has to be explained clearly and accurately and as precisely and fully as we can. And that's why I consider myself to be my verbosity to me is part of why I consider myself to be a very good teacher.
Yeah, I'm with it.
It really helps people. Yeah. So.
Me too. I second that. I am all about, I'd rather say too much than too little. And, words are so powerful. I mean, we're casting spells, right? They're just these vibrational arrows that we're shooting constantly. And, it's pretty amazing, all the empowering, information that is just floating now, and how empowered I feel after this conversation. And I know that you guys out there listening do as well. It's like, all of this, everything that we've talked about comes back to, the same sort of thing. And that is the power to shift into a life beyond your wildest dreams and the next greatest and greatest version of yourself, and to catch up with the 5D version of yourself who is celebrating, and partying in eternity it's right there. The power is right in your hands. It's not, none of this has been like, hey, you need to go find this, guru in the mountains and, or any of these things external of yourself. It's really just claiming your sovereignty and saying, okay, enough is enough. I'm choosing to empower myself. I'm going to make I'm going to make small changes to start shifting and doing more and more. I'm going to continue. And many people are already doing it that are listening, and I'm going to continue on that journey, and I'm going to continue to expand, and I'm going to continue to come back to the remembrance that at the end of the day, people like myself or you, Lori, we can point the way, but all the power lies inside of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I always tell people in my community, if someone says they're your guru, run for the hills.
Yep. Yeah, don't go worship them in the hills. Run for the opposite hill.
Yeah, run in the opposite direction. Don't become your own guru, because you're your own guru, right?
Yes, you are. And your own soulmate and your own, the number one thing I believe we're all here to learn is self-love. And, I believe that's a reflection of the divine, of source, of God, whatever your higher self, whatever you want to call it. It is one, and therefore, in one sense, it's alone from a certain perspective, because it is everything. And at the end of the day, when all the chess pieces go back in the box, there is one, and that one is learning to love itself. And so, as fractals of the one, we're all here to root in that, that same lesson on a fractalized smaller scale, right? We're learning self-love, because that is the ultimate journey. That is the journey of what is really going on, is learning to fall in love with yourself. Because even when you think you've fallen in love with another, person, that is truly just your consciousness, animated in another form. And so, it becomes, everything ends up all arrows point back to you, with all of the stuff.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
This has been so epic.
Also, can
Sure.
I say one other thing about what you just said? This is what I love. When you said what you just said, it just reminds me that, like, one of the most fabulous things is when you really fall in love with yourself. When you really you become, you're so in love. Like, for me, when I'm at my best, and I'm really knowing, like, I'm so in love with myself, it's not coming from the ego. And this is like, you just want everybody else to be so in love with themselves too, because you realize, like, we're so magnificent. Like, that feels so good. And I've noticed in my life, especially over the last couple of years, how a lot of old relationships that I used to have really did fall away, because I was learning how I was too in love with myself for them. Like, those old relationships were versions of who I used to be, but not who I had become. And for me, when we're around our vibrational compatible people, no one's going to be sitting there on the sidelines going, she's full of herself. She better get a little too small. You're going to be like, woohoo, you go.
Yep.
Like, I'm in love with you too. Like, we all fall in love with ourselves. And that's not an arrogant ego thing. It's because we realize not only is it the divine who's in love with us, but it's also we realizing, wow, the divine within us is so freaking incredible.
Yes.
You're just in love. You're just in love with yourself and everyone else. And if for some reason you have to be around someone who's making you be less than that, that means that very likely that's not your true tribe or community. But it's time to level up, because you already have love. And this brings me back to that topic of community, and why, retreats and events and expos and conferences and podcasts and radio shows where you connect with your community and your tribe are some of the most important things we can do as we're leveling up and shifting. So.
Yeah, I think there's no substitute for being in, like, podcast and content is been such an incredible level up in the world's journey. Media, the internet, to be able to tap into this stuff. If you're sitting in the middle of, Arkansas, and there's no one around you that seems to be on this wavelength, perhaps, it's opened up so many doors to be able to connect with community online. And of course, there's like the Positive Heads Facebook group, which I encourage you guys to get in if you're not. Positive Heads with an S, and it's a private group, and you can connect with people, and it's great to see people connecting even in their hometowns and in person. And but yeah, I feel like the really next level is surrounding yourself vibrationally with others that are, they say you're like the 5 people you spend the most time with. You're the composite of them in a sense. And community is the future. For me, creating permanent village infrastructure in the future is something I've been since 2005. I've been like, my first experience at Burning Man, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to create permanent village infrastructure and community and, new ways of living in group structures. And this, for me, the Mystic Manor here is my first sort of stab at that, in a sense. It's such a communal thing that's happening here. And, once again, if any of you guys ever want to explore that and experience what my aim with it really has been, Lori, is to give people a Sobet experience, which is like a transference of energy. So once you're here, you're like bathing in the vibration of this vortex of transformation that week in and week out, there's people having transformational experiences. That is just encoded everywhere in this place. Or, if they come to Arkansas with you, or there's so many things going on, and it's just a matter of finding what is in resonance. If it's not the Mystic Manor, find something in your local community, or go to Bali, or, there's so many things going on to tap into. But, if you guys want to come here, I would love to see you here. And you can, like I said, you can go to optimistic.tv and learn more, or you can even just book a call to talk with me if you go to calendly.com/talk with Brandon. And Calendly is CALENDLY.com /talk with Brandon. And I've been having 15-minute calls with people to explore, how do we get you here? When do you want to come? What questions do you have? That kind of thing. So And as far as your retreats and your, ways of creating community and activation and workshop, I know there's multiple things that you're doing. What is the best way, Lori, for people to connect with you, to follow your work, give them all the
One
things.
of the first things they can definitely do is head over to the website, LoriSpagna.com. That's my name, LoriSpagna.com. I'm sure it's on.
I mispronounced it at the beginning. Spagna. Spagna.
Well, Spagna
not
is,
Spagna.
No, Spagna's correct too. Spagna is kind of like the Mediterranean pronunciation. They're both correct. Spagna
The fancier way.
as well.
Can you spell it so that people...
Yeah, it's LORISPAGNA. And,
Got it.
They can get some. First of all, if they go over to the website and join the community, they'll get some great gifts on activating their DNA. Classes,
Cool,
actual activations, and they'll get some great stuff on the Indigo family tribes, and different star family races, and what that is, and how we're working and what we're doing, and how to know if you are one. And of course, there's tons of stuff there that are free gifts for humans and their animals. Animal telepathy, there's a class on that. And there's a class on opening free gifted classes on accessing your psychic abilities. And there's tons of great healing classes for people and animals too. So that's all at the website, LoriSpagna.com. And then if they really want to go deep with me, the two key workshops I do in-person retreats. One is called the Lightworker Boot Camp, where they come to visit me, and we spend a long weekend with me, and we help them clear out whatever it is. It's like whatever they need, whatever it is, we're doing clearing, healing, channeling, activations, guidance, whatever's needed. And the other really big event I love doing is the Crystal Retreat, where we go to Arkansas and work directly with the crystals, which we didn't talk too much about that today, but they're all holding all the codes and tons of information and energy and DNA activation. There's just so much content in these crystals, and star family race information. They're like they're record keepers of their own. So
right.
People come to that retreat. We have sacred community. We have a great time being 5D conscious friends. We eat together, we play together, we meditate together, we communicate with the crystals, we heal with the crystals, we do crystal singing bowls. It's just a fabulous, incredible
cool
retreat. And they do that every year. And then of course, if they're not able to travel, there's tons of stuff on the website, DNA activations, and there's a sacred membership, which for your community, I would be more than happy to give them a special offer where they could save $100 if they want to join the annual membership. It's the sacred membership. It's under sacred membership on the website. And if they just mention Brandon, or all they have to do is mention your name, we'll give them that $100 coupon, and they can use the coupon code. It's sacred7, and that would be the number 7. So they use that at checkout, and they'll save $100 on that sacred membership. And it's great if they say that they heard me through you, but I'll know that they did even anyway with that if they use that, because we're just going to give that to your.
You said it's sacred, and then the number 7 is the coupon code they would use?
Yes,
okay.
And they'll save $100 on the annual sacred membership. And that membership has hundreds of hours of content, MP3s and video tutorials, classes. There's a whole course that's on the secret energy of money and the spiritual laws of wealth. There's activations, meditations for people, for animals. There's stuff on the crystals. There's just all things esoteric. It's a huge living library. And by the way, I update it every holiday season. I update it with more stuff. So you will love it. Meditations, the whole thing. It's a great membership. Yeah.
That sounds absolutely incredible. And I so appreciate you doing something special for the listeners. I know those that feel called to participate in that certainly appreciate it. And wow, this has been so cool. Oh, one of the things as we wind down here, I realized I haven't asked yet. I always love to hear a good story of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. And something tells me you have something really good up your sleeve to sort of wind us down here.
I love this. So when I was first kind of like what I say, waking up, and my brother if you remember back to my story, was communicating with me. I did what most people do when they think they're a little crazy. I kept asking for validation. So I would say
Been there,
things
done
like,
that.
right, if this is really my brother Jeff and I'm not crazy, show me this. If this is really my
Yep.
brother Jeff and I'm not crazy, show me that. And for sure, synchronicity after synchronicity, evidence after evidence, validation after validation. And I just can't believe it. So this went on for like a year. And finally, I kept getting validation and I would switch it up. Like at first it was like, okay, just show me a butterfly, because that was like the first one, because butterflies,
Yep.
are symbolic of transformation. And I see butterfly
Yep.
after butterfly. I'm like, this is too easy. Like, okay, show
Yeah.
me a pot, show me a pot leaf. Like I'm just walking down the street of Los Angeles and I see these pot leaves. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. Someone's growing pot. Like I just kept this.
Okay, give me a butterfly smoking pot.
Okay. Then it was Grateful Dead. Show me a Grateful Dead sign. Okay. I go on and on. Too many synchronicities. I just still can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Then two really big ones came. And one of those big ones was he gave me a CD by the band called No Doubt. That was a Christmas gift he gave me. I was like meticulous in my organization of like my CDs and my books and everything. And one day that CD was sticking out of the bookcase of the CD case. That was weird, right? And then I was like, okay, the last book he ever gave me was Ghosts of Key West. That was we ever did together. We went to Key West together on a Ghosts of Key West tour. And I thought, I wonder if the same thing could happen with that. And sure enough, the next day, that book was sticking out. Okay, that was really all weird. But even that, I was like, no way. I just cannot believe that is real, that is my brother. And I would hear him in my head like, Law, it's your dead brother. It's your dead brother. That was his voice, his New York comedic accent. So here was the final synchronicity. After that, I was done. Actually, there were more after that too, but I didn't need any more convincing after this one. I'm walking down the street of LA and I'm contemplating, like, I'm going to move to Maui because I've already now become a dog trainer. I realize, like, my brother's talking to me, but I'm already getting messages like from the dogs, but I'm like reflecting on it all. And I'm thinking I'm going to move to Maui. And as I'm reflecting, this was happening like for a while. I was like, I just wish before I literally move and pack up everything, that I could get one last like sign that none of this has been my imagination, because I'm just still all alone here. Like I have no one to talk to about this. My then husband was divorcing me because he just thought I was crazy and he couldn't handle any of this. And one of the things I hear in my head one of those days when I'm doing this, I'm walking down the street of LA. And, I should tell you before, my brother's dog's name that he had was Herkimer. And I had never heard of Herkimer Herkimer diamonds. I never knew what that was. Even at that point, I still didn't know what a Herkimer diamond was.
Yeah, I never heard of that.
Neither did I at that point anyway. I'm walking down the street. I'm, thinking that he's going through this. And I hear in my head, look up. I'm like, what? Look up. And I look up, and there I see a sign, Herkimer Diner.
Wow.
And I'm done. Yeah.
I love it. So I want to add to it a little bit. So the reason this podcast exists is, when I originally started having my awakening, first thing I determined is like, oh my gosh, I can manifest anything. I want to create music and use music as a tool to, raise consciousness. And so I was in a band for about 7-8 years, and the bass player in our band, his brother was the drummer of a very well-known band. Can you guess what band my bass player's brother was in? Nope. Try again.
I don't know.
You named another band a minute ago. on the bookshelf.
I
There was
did?
something that was sticking. No doubt.
Oh, no doubt. Oh, that is wild.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
So my bass player, his
Synchronicity.
brother, is the drummer in No Doubt, and actually, yeah, the drummer,
That's
No Doubt,
wild.
Adrian, is a friend of mine. He invested in my last company. I've had some really crazy synchronicities around No Doubt. Actually, probably the most crazy synchronicity story I have involves. No Doubt in a way. So, that's a whole nother story for another day. But I kept hearing "Do not doubt yourself" from this channeling experience I have, and then, it's a long story. I won't go into it all, but it's really funny that I have a little tie-in to your story there. So let the layers of the onion continue to unravel, right?
That's just so funny though, because when you think about it, we started with synchronicity. Your synchronicity, when we started, you told me your 28 synchronicity. We ended.
Oh yeah, my birthday.
With my synchronicity, and then we actually ended with where our two synchronicities met.
Yep, and that's
so
a wrap,
funny and
folks.
Cool. Yeah, awesome.
This has been so cool, Lori. You are amazing. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. We'll have to have you back on sometime. And
I'm back with Erica in 2 weeks. I think I'm going to be doing a show with Erica.
Oh, awesome! I love that.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. How's that for a quick manifestation, folks?
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, very cool. I think so.
Oh, wow.
We talked about it. So
cool.
it's all
Well,
good.
I think you've got a lot to offer, and I would love to, if you're ever out here in California, come and check out live taping of Optimistic. Who knows? Maybe we can even get you on at some point.
Oh my God, I would love that. Do you know what? I'm back in February for the Conscious Life Expo. We definitely do need to.
Oh, yeah. Let's figure that out. And
I'll reach out to you.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Cool. Well,
Awesome.
with that being said, I have one final question for you, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Lori Spagna, right? Did I say it right, Spagna?
Okay, well, before I answer that question, can I just say thank you for having me? It has been so much fun.
Aw.
I absolutely love and adore you. I think you're fabulous.
Oh, likewise. The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest. And to answer your question, 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life? Oh, wow. The meaning of life is awareness, consciousness, love, existence. All that is. Expansion. I think that's what
Love it. I feel expanded here today. Lori, thank you so much. All of you out there listening. Until next time, journey well. And if you're feeling the call to come for a week retreat style Mystic Manor immersion, remember to go now and book your time to speak with me directly about stepping into the optimistic vortex at calendly.com/talk with Brandon while there are still spots left. Otherwise, I look forward to co-creating magic with you at the Mystic Manor.